Now, the bad news for England. Luke Shaw has had an injury setback.
Who could have predicted it?
Yeah.
It's like he is recovering from an injury and he's living in a war zone because he's at Man United.
Yeah.
So who knows what
Bit of the roof hit him.
What hapless piece of admin, could have been the roof.
Yeah.
Give him a setback, but he's got one. In the most inevitable news for a long time, he's had a setback. So we are Diffie a left back. And I was fearing this because it's the question we get a lot about, and I don't have an answer. So we're going to have to kind of game it out ourselves on the show today.
We are going to have a go, everybody. Don't worry about that. So please keep listening. But yeah, he's had an injury setback, and this comes in light of the Southgate naming his provisional squad on Tuesday next week. Erik ten Hag has explained that there is still hope and he will fight to be available for the FA Cup final on the 25th of May. Now, if you are coming back from injury and you haven't played football for a long time, is a cup final against Manchester City ideal when you're going to get twisted up by whoever plays on the wing? Yeah. Also, there's I don't think Ten Hag would start him if he was available, although, I mean, he could do worse. So it would be unlikely that he would start that game. Even if he did, that's one game of football, and then England have two friendlies, of course, ahead of the tournament. I think it's Iceland and Bosnia-Herzegovina. Yeah. So you really are short. And again, it's not like he's been out for a few weeks or even a month. He's been out for a long time. I appreciate that if someone has been out for a month, I mean, was it Maguire who was out for a bit?
So you're saying he's fresh?
I am saying he's so fresh.
With the exception of that thigh, his whole body's fresh.
I think you can be too fresh, though, is I think what we're learning.
As you said to me in the club last night. Don't get too fresh with me, is what you said.
That was between you and I, and sadly it hasn't stayed that way.
And that gimp?
Come on. That's too much. It's too far.
I pulled the curtain back too far, haven't I?
You have. And you've gone too smutty as well, as you often do. But Luke Shaw, he played every minute at the World Cup in Qatar. And Southgate, I mean, look, Southgate is aware of the situation, for crying out loud. We all are. He did say back in March that it would be highly unlikely he'd be able to play Shaw in every game at this summer's Euros. I think Southgate has alluded sometimes to players may not be able to play at the start of the Euros, but as the tournament goes on, and you're obviously hopeful, as one of the favourites, England would progress into the knockouts, that maybe players can become available then. I understand that view. But it is a gamble. There's no two ways about it. You can say, well, but you can get levels of fitness up to match standard. You can, although there's nothing like playing the game. But it's not about that. It's also about the sharpness. And even though Luke Shaw is a fantastic footballer and a great professional and all that, you've still got to have match practice and match sharpness, which you just simply can't recreate anywhere other than on the pitch. So, with all that in mind, Luke Moore, is left back suddenly England's biggest problem for the tournament?
I think defensively, generally, that's probably the question mark. And I think if you drill down within that defence, I think left back is the issue because of the availability things you've talked about. And a decision to make really is whether you want to promote a specialist left back at this early stage,
yes,
or get someone to kind of deputise, a la Trippier, a la Joe Gomez, to do a job. And I don't have a problem with that second option necessarily in the group stage because I think England can deal with that. I just feel like the thing that really lets us down, or is likely to let us down, is that when it comes down to a big knockout game where the margins are really fine and you really want everyone fit and firing. Now, maybe that's a luxury that people just don't have these days because of the way football is now and the amount of football that's played. But it's clear to me that a problem area like this does need to be solved in a way that's going to give us the best chance to win against good teams. Now, we don't have that many naturally left-footed candidates to play left-back. The ones I would say are, the main one is probably Tyreek Mitchell, who's played before,
a couple of times,
who's having a good season, is a specialist left-back, and is playing as we sit here right now. In a Palace team that are doing well.
An uninjured left footer.
Sure. Yeah.
Obviously, Chilwell is due back,
that are available.
He's injured, yeah.
Well, look, I don't want to be disrespectful about Chilwell, but at this point, he's cooked. Like, he may come back. There may be a great comeback in there somewhere, but at the moment, he's cooked.
Right.
A lot of people talk about Tino Livramento.
Yeah.
He can play both left and right fullback, but he's right-footed, naturally. Joe Gomez is also naturally right-footed. Kieran Trippier is also naturally right-footed. Where it gets really interesting is I could paint you a little picture a lovely picture.
I've got time.
A beautiful canvas that tells a story about a 32-year-old man uncapped for England at the moment called Derren Brown. It's distinguishing himself as left back for quite some time now. Provides incredible amounts of presence at set pieces and wants it. What a story. Does previously uncapped big Derren Brown help guide England to glory this summer as a left back? Is it possible? Could that be the case? Now, I can tell by your face you're not interested in that so much, so I'm going to push that to one side.
What we try and do on this podcast is give our opinions and also think what is it likely Southgate would do. So you could say that you would fancy Derren Brown getting a call up. Southgate's not going to do that.
He is left-footed. He's played left back at a high level. He's played left back in the Champions League. You know, he's very experienced. He does offer you a lot of physical presence. I think he's an option. It's definitely an option that's not really talked about much. If people are going to start talking about, you know, Lewis Hall or Levi Colwill or Tino Livramento, I mean, Derren Brown should be talked about as well. So I think it's an option. The other angle that I wanted to bring to the table that is of interest that we haven't discussed specifically yet on this series of Lions Watch is the idea that playing a right-footed left-back who's got a huge amount of experience, like Kieran Trippier. In many ways, it's a dig to Derren Brown that Gareth Southgate is playing Kieran Trippier out of his natural position for England when he plays for the same team that Derren Brown plays for in that position, right? So it's a bit of a weird situation. I understand why that may be the case. There's lots of different factors. But if you play Trippier at left back, what it does is it gives you a strength that isn't that obvious. And that strength is that a lot of wide forwards that they come up against love to cut inside. And the fact they cut inside so often means your right foot comes into play a lot more. If you are essentially having to show a wide forward inside, or you're struggling to show them outside, should I say, your right foot comes into play because you can then play with your foot of strength when they're attacking you. That might be part of the reason why he'll play Trippier there. The other reason will be that he's hugely experienced. He likes him. He relies upon him. He's a leader. He's been massively influential in the Newcastle project that we've seen.
Great with set pieces.
And he's fantastic with set pieces. He's been around the England squad for a long time. I'm not saying he should select Derren Brown and play him. I'm saying he's worthy of mention in this conversation. And they're not the same things. And
you've done that.
And you won't ever be generous in spirit enough to lend your strength to him as well.
When he left Fulham, I couldn't, he was dead to me.
No longer exists. No, I have to remind you who he was.
I don't think Derren Brown is an option personally.
For what reason? Because you don't think he's good enough?
I don't think he's quite good enough, and I think so. That's my opinion, and I think Southgate is never going to pick him in a million years. So I think Southgate will go with someone who is, I would say, a better player, has got more potential as well, and has also been involved somewhere along the line in the squad, or maybe got a cap or two. So I think if Shaw's not going to go at all, which is not what we're saying at this early stage, but if he's not going to go at all, then do you rely on Chilwell? Well, Chilwell is not as good as Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw has been a stalwart in the England side under Southgate.
And Chilwell struggled really badly to stay fit and be able to consistently play, and that's part of that reason.
So there's that. Chilwell's been in the squad a number of times, of course, but a lot of people made a lot of comments, negative comments about Chilwell's performances in those England friendlies that they had against Brazil and Belgium. And clearly Southgate was really trying to kind of hone in on Chilwell and think, right, come on, mate, we need you here. And he didn't perform that well, to be fair. I don't think Chilwell's a terrible option, by the way. I think if Chilwell is fully fit, I might well go with him. I think he's won the Champions League for crying out loud, so he's not a bad player. But he may well not be able to rely on Chilwell Southgate, especially with the knee problem. So who have we got? You've mentioned a few names there. Joe Gomez started against Belgium in March. Gomez is a right footer, as you said. He is very experienced, though. He's played in that Liverpool back line. He can also play at centre half. So you know, a bit of a Swiss Army knife, as someone said in one of the comments. Left side, he's a touch weaker because that's not his natural side, but he's solid, I think you could say about Gomez. And I think Gomez will probably go now. Tyrick Mitchell is a left footer. He's had a couple of caps for England. It was a little while ago, to the point of I think Jamaica were trying to get hold of him.
Probably why he was picked.
Yeah, maybe. No, well, since then, I think Jamaica.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah.
He's a young man.
He's played friendlies, yeah.
Mitchell was having an okay season for Palace, but under Glasner, he's really come on, as a number of them have. Levi Colwill, another one who's a bit raw in terms of international football, has a cap when he played against Australia, but he was a part of the England under-21s that won the Euros. I think he started or played in 5 of the 6 games in an England side that was just airtight at the back. So he's got a bit of tournament experience, albeit under 21 level, and is a good player. Like, he has been tipped to do great things in his career. Prefers being centre half, but has been deployed a lot by Chelsea on that left side.
He's played on the left side of a 3 recently for Chelsea.
Yeah, well, that's another thing I should have said about Tyrick Mitchell, by the way, is he's playing left wing back a lot. And Palace have been playing at a back 3 quite a bit. So there is that. Now, Rico Lewis, we've not mentioned, he played left
He's a right back, though, isn't he?
He is. Well, again, he's played left side. I just think we should give him a mention because Rico Lewis will get a fair few England caps in the future.
I think he's a brilliant player.
Yeah, but
he's a 19-year-old and he's no way is he a specialist left back.
Yeah, so my suggestions would be that, because Southgate has said he might take a few extra defenders because you've got the 26-man squad. So why not have a few more options in there? If you're going to, just go, okay, fine, we'll bring him and him as well. So let's take Shaw and Chilwell out of the scenario. I think he would take Gomez. I think he will take Colwill, and I think he'll take Trippier for those positions. I think that's what he'll do. I think Mitchell may miss out, but I think that's what he would do. And I don't necessarily disagree with that.
Gomez, Trippier, and Colwill.
Yeah, for that left back area.
Okay,
that's what I think he would start Trippier.
So you're not going to take a single specialist left back.
Well,
I think one of those 3 has to be a special. One of those 3 has to. What way I would frame it is one of them has to be. I don't think it will be Chilwell. I just don't think.
Who's your specialist left back? You think Dan Burn?
Well, I think you take Shaw. You
just do it no matter what happens.
I think you take Shaw. And
I say so.
If you can't, if it's literally right, no,
that's what I was going with there. Yeah.
I think you have to take one specialist. I think Mitchell has to be one of them. And then even if you don't play him, you play Gomez and you see how you go. I just think you want an option where you're not for a whole tournament talking about a player internally. I mean, talking about how to get the best out of a player who's not naturally playing that position. That seems crazy to me to not take one of them.
So the reason why I said that was because I'm ruling out Chilwell and Shaw in that scenario. If one of them is eligible to play, not eligible, he's fit enough to play, they can get something out of him, then he will take him. And
I think we are miles away from Chilwell. Right. I know that the staff at Chelsea have said that he's close, but they're also saying he's not ready to be part of the squad yet. And there's only 1 game left this season for Chelsea.
Yeah.
He's not looked very good when he's played either.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting that's not because he's any good. I'm just saying because his injuries are really
well. He hasn't played since mid-April, which.
But he was bad then.
But he was injured before that most of March. No, okay. So again, but this is what we're trying to do. Who are you taking out of the equation and who are you not? And also as well with Trippier, by the way, he returned from 2 months out injured with a 5-minute cameo against Brighton on Saturday. So, he's not played an awful lot of football. We're recording this before Newcastle play Manchester United on the Wednesday night. I think that Kieran Trippier is actually now very important to this England side because if Trippier lines up at left back, as he did for the opening game of Euro 2020, then I'm okay with that, personally.
Well, that's why we record this a day before, but that's why tonight's game is important, not just for Trippier, but for Pope as well. We're not going to be the only nation that have got players rushing back to be fit. There's going to be every single team's going to have that situation. I just think we're in a situation where we're going to have to decide whether we play someone out of position or whether we give an inexperienced specialist in that position the chance. That's the conversation.
But when you say out of position, like Gomez has played there a lot, and so has Colwill. So it's not an unfamiliar position for them.
I would say Colwill hasn't played a lot, full stop. And Gomez, fine, he has played there, but it's not his natural position. And it's not Trippier's natural position. I suspect what will happen is Southgate will get the green light from Trippier and he'll be fit and he'll play. Because that's just kind of the conservative nature.
But he will need backup, though. He will need backup. And we have seen teams play players out of position and whatnot to form, a team that do your function, pal. And then we'll, Blaise Matuidi for France, in the World Cup, he was played out of position, I think, on that sort of right side.
Yeah, that's fair.
And you do what you have to get over the line. But let's stay with fullbacks for a moment. Let's go to the other side. Reece James. We saw with a lovely assist for Chelsea against Nottingham Forest.
Good to have him back.
He is back. He's been out for 5 months. Is it too late for him to get a call up? I mean, if you think about it, my answer is no, because you've obviously got Kyle Walker there. Alexander-Arnold is down as a midfielder, of course, can play right back. Now, I understand if you bring in Joe Gomez and so on, they can play full-back as well and so on. But Trippier, as I say, I think he's left-back. He's either starting left-back or cover left-back. I don't think it's ridiculous to say Reece James isn't out of the equation.
My take on Reece James is that he, at his best, when he's fit and firing, when we had all those amazing right-backs start to come through at the same time, I think, personally, I thought he looked the best of the lot. I thought that given the age of Walker, we're continually surprised by Kyle Walker, aren't we, about what he's able to do and how he's able to perform at the age of 33. Not that far away from being 34. I think he's 34 next week, actually. You might want some backup in there and someone to inherit that. Reece James's career at England has stopped and started because of availability issues and all the rest of it. I can't speak highly enough of him when he's fully fit and playing well. I think he can do everything. He can do all of it. He looked the best of a lot of them. So yeah, to me, I'd be absolutely delighted to see him force a last-minute berth on the plane for sure.
Well, as I say, Southgate does name his provisional squad next Tuesday, and we shall see if he is selecting some half-fit or even quarter-fit players. And Reece James, it may well feel slightly unlucky if he's overlooked. But as I said earlier, when Southgate was speaking to the BBC this week, he might use those extra spots in the 26-man squad for 3 or 4 defenders who haven't played that much recently. Southgate did stress that there's no point in taking more players than what they need. So we shall see what gorgeous Gareth will come up with.
Gorgeous Gareth now, is he? He's gorgeous Gareth now, everyone.
Indeed. But it's a conundrum, and it's something that we just didn't want to see. You start worrying, going, oh, it's an area of the pitch and so on. But as I say, other teams have had this, and they've gone on to do very, very well in tournaments as well. So it's never going to be.
We should do our squad.
Sailing.
We'll do our squad on social media before
the
Gareth releases his, right?
That's right. That is absolutely.
Yeah,
right.
I just think you talked about Reece James and everything in the context of that. Like, obviously, he wasn't available for the World Cup in 2022. Didn't go. When England played against France, they played Walker and Shaw fullbacks.
Yeah.
In the group stage, they played Trippier quite a lot.
When Walker was unavailable.
Walker was he suspended at that time? Or was he still coming back in from injury? He was unavailable, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That's the way of putting it. That's a broadcaster's term of using when you can't quite remember. But it never felt like a problem. I know England were knocked out by France, but it was a pretty close game, and could have gone either way. I think it was particularly galling that Olivier Giroud got man of the match because everyone kind of thought he was on his way. But my point is that things change very, very quickly. This tournament we're talking about there was only 18 months ago, and now the whole thing's changed up again. Gareth Southgate isn't the kind of manager, I don't think, to deliver a huge amount of surprises, like in a squad naming. He will generally revert to the conservative type, which is obviously, of course, the criticism that most people have of him. But he may be forced into making some interesting decisions this time around. So before it comes out on Tuesday, we'll do ours, and we'll see how different they are.
Now, how about this, Luke Moore? Jason McAteer, former...
Stop there.
Right.
Stop there. You sure?
He's sure.
He's sure about a lot of things.
He is, yeah. Former Ireland defender, of course, or wing-back, actually, often would play. He revealed on Be In Sport... Yep, Keys and Gray. Recently, that a Manchester United player he bumped into has told him that Gareth Southgate will be given the Man United job this summer.
That's how top level football works.
Just bumped into
Jason McAteer.
He told me.
Yeah, it's all sorted already, is it?
Yeah.
Who was the player?
He didn't name him, and
Tissio.
therefore
didn't play for Man United, so I can't remember him. Look, Jason McAteer is basically saying that Southgate to United, it's done, right?
That's what he's suggesting.
But I just don't. I mean, first of all, it's Jason McAteer.
Yeah. Whoever he bumped into, I'd really love it if they walked off going. I said to their mates in the pub later, I bumped into Jason McAteer earlier. He kept thinking I was Harry Maguire. Yeah.
That is more likely. The thing is, that is more likely to be true than what he's saying.
All right, coming up in the second half, we've got your questions and the take thermometer. We've already talked about one take there. What have we got in store for you? Stick around.
Good morning, Glenn. You tell us something your mum doesn't know. Yeah.
Right, everybody, it's now time for the return of the take thermometer.
Every week on Lions Watch, we sense check, and I use that term loosely, the latest big opinions on our very own patented take thermometer. Fairly self-explanatory. Is something a pundit, player or coach has said regarding the England men's team spot on or a load of old shit? A reminder of our scale. It's named in honour of every footballer's favourite restaurant, Nando's. We've got lemon and herb, mild, medium, hot, and flare up the arse.
They've yet to do that on Nando's, flare up the arse.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time.
We've copied them. Why won't they copy us?
A tie-in is on its way, I'll tell you
Copy
that.
us back.
What they should do is when they do it on the really... So if you buy a whole chicken and you get it the hottest it can get, just shove a little sparkler up the bum.
No,
it's very easily done. Like, it's a great little gimmick.
Label it up the speller sauce.
There we go. And get it right up the jacksie. Previously, Fabio Capello and Michael Owen have been given lemon and herb so far. So
you talked me down, actually. I said Capello was maybe a medium, and you actually twisted my arm. And I thought, no, lemon and herb. So we dished out lemon and herb so far.
You're easily led. Both the takes from Capello and Owen have been very, very poor takes. Who'd have thought it? Because one doesn't watch football and the other one hasn't got two brain cells to rub together. So this week, this is the take this week. We were debating whether Kobbie Mainoo should be in England's midfield on the last episode, but none other than the great Graham Souness has waded into this discussion with his take. Here's the headline. Kobbie Mainoo isn't ready to go to Euro 2024 with England, but Cole Palmer is one of the first names on the team sheet. Souness said he's not ready yet, speaking about Mainoo. If I'm Gareth Southgate, I'm all business.
I don't think Souness thing to say.
I don't think he's ready. I think Palmer is further down that road. If you were going tomorrow, he might be one of the first names on the team sheet. So anyway, forget the Palmer thing for now. We're focusing on the Kobbie Mainoo situation. The take from Graham Souness is Kobbie Mainoo is not only not ready to start for England, he's not ready to go. What do you think?
I think
I know what you think, but I want to get it in proper on the record from you, Marcus.
I'm getting a bit fed up of dishing out lemon and herb takes here.
Right.
I'm going to give him mild.
Okay.
And I'm being generous to Graham.
I thought you'd hate this take because you're a big Mainoo man.
Well, I mean,
think he's the Mainoo man.
I do, and I think he should be starting for England. But the reason why I think it's a mild take rather than lemon and herb is because he is very young and we've only seen him play for this Manchester United this season. And if there's a load of chaos and craziness happening around him, then he's not going to be blamed really for much. You know, other people are going to rightly take the flak. Now, I think Mainoo's... Look, let me stress, I think he should probably start for England, only because of England's lack of options sometimes in midfield with that type of midfield player. But I think he should definitely go. But there is that element of him being untested and untried at that level. And he's an 18-year-old lad. So,
but England level is easier than Man United Premier League level.
Possibly.
In terms of the football?
Possibly, but you just don't know how someone's going to react to the occasion. I think he'll be fine, but there's just that tiny, tinsy little sort of logic in, you know, with what Souness is saying, in that he's very, very young and he's only had, half a season really under his belt, or maybe a bit more. It's been chaos at Manchester United, so... It is that sort of rawness, I suppose. So that is why I'm not going lemon and herb. I will give him mild to be generous.
Fine. So I will probably reserve flare up the arse takes for... Jeez, I hadn't thought of that before. And that's amazing. Great point. So I'm not giving him that. I do, however, though, think this is a hot take. I rate this take. I think he's spot on. I think the other reason I wouldn't quite give it flare up the arse is because... you probably would still take him in the squad. And Souness is saying he doesn't go at all. He's not ready to go at all. But I would look at it this way. You touched on it a little bit in terms of talking about how chaotic it's been at United and how it's fairly easy to stand out just by being a calm presence doing your job. I would expand on that by saying if he performs the way he's performed in that position for... I'll tell you, let's use the example of Crystal Palace because we're just starting to hear about Adam Morton. No way does he get the attention that he's been getting at Manchester United. And this is not a Man United team fighting for the title. That's the important thing. When we've had that criticism before, you say, yeah, but Man United, they're used to excellence. They're used to being competing for every trophy. And that's why...
Well, this group of players aren't.
That's what I'm saying. So that's why it's not as big a deal anyway.
Yeah.
And the second point I would just make is that... he's played very, very little football, relatively speaking. And I don't actually think when he has played, he's done the key portion of what you have to do in that role, and that is controlling games.
But he'll be playing. all being well, next to Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham, who can control games. And I think he slots in there, and I think he is the closest to the missing piece of that midfield that England have.
See, that's a fair point, and that's an interesting angle.
That is it. I think he will go on, and if he didn't go to the Euros, I think he will improve as a player, and we'll see him in an England shirt going forward again. But that is the crux of my argument, really, is that he is the best of the rest of those midfielders to fill that position. I understand some people think, no, it should be Foden and Bellingham ahead of Declan Rice. That's not a terrible shout at all. I'm just concerned about England sort of slightly defensively and having another type of midfielder there, and that's why I'd have him in.
Let him develop and mature. Let him see. What could easily happen at Man United as well is that there's going to be a clear up probably this summer, isn't there? And as a result, they're probably going to bring players in.
Yeah.
He might get Man United, the type of club that could bring a player in on massive money for a massive transfer fee, huge amount of experience, who'll have to play ahead of Manu. And I wouldn't be surprised if Manu doesn't play much next season.
Just hearing some Manchester United fans who watch them week in, week out, they are very excited about Manu.
I think he's got a lot of potential. I'm excited about him. I think he's got a lot of potential, but when I look at the correlation between when he plays and how Man United do, which is not entirely his fault, but that position, the way he plays, is really important to that. It's unfair to compare him to Rodri, right? Or even, slightly different player, but even like João Palhinha.
But he's for England, he won't he won't have to do that. And that is, again, my point. If Declan Rice got injured, I wouldn't say, I'll have Manu in there and Foden and Bellingham ahead of him.
So the verdict is, from Marcus, it's mild, but from me, it's hot.
Hot.
We've got separate verdicts.
I'm not sure that we're going to be so far apart in any other takes going forward, but
I hope we are, though.
But maybe we do, everybody. It's the take thermometer. You can't take your eyes and ears off it.
Yeah, or your tongue off it.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Right now, it's time for some of your questions. Remember, you can send us your England questions at any time. Email us, show@footballramble.com, or tweet us on X @footballramble. Anytime you want. They're open 24/7, these channels.
Is X still open 24/7?
Absolutely.
I thought it might have closed outside office hours unless you got a premium account.
No, the Musketeer demands X is open at all times.
Yeah, good.
That is his work ethic.
You can't
ethic? Well, that's something else, but his work ethic.
You can't take anything out. You can't take that away from him.
You can't.
Who's up first?
Ryan is up first. He says this: Ivan Toney has been poor since his return, while Dom Solanke, as he calls him, has been banging in the goals for a lower half team. What is the argument for picking Toney ahead of Solanke? It's a fair question.
Bournemouth are only a lower half team on goal difference as well, which is quite harsh on them.
You get the point.
I do get the point. Well, the main argument, I suppose, Ryan, is that the reason that Ivan Toney, in my view, there's two main reasons that Ivan Toney is always part of this conversation. One is because he is the most similar deputy to Harry Kane in terms of how he plays, and the logic would go that if Kane isn't available, why not try and replicate him as best you can with some strengths that are similar, which Ivan Toney, I think, does provide. Secondly, he's benefited a lot from his absence. So although it seems counterintuitive to say it, traditionally, when players who've shown something are out of the game for a while, they start to grow in reputation in their absence. And that's certainly happened with Toney. And when Toney first came back from his ban, he looked pretty good. He scored here and there. And I totally...
Played for England, of course, against Belgium.
He did. He scored in that game, didn't he, as well?
He did penalty, yeah.
Yeah, of course it was. And he... and since then, he has obviously dropped off, and he's not doing amazingly for a team who also aren't doing amazingly. So that's the Ivan Toney part of it. The Solanke thing, Solanke has got a cap for England, I think.
Yeah.
He has played before, though it was quite a long old time ago now. He's had a good season. He's probably had the best season of his career because the goal scoring he's done that has been to a higher volume than this has been obviously outside of the top flight for Bournemouth. So this is the best season, the best return he's had in his career. So he is maturing as a player. I'm not going to sit here and say and defend Southgate for not picking Solanke. I think, if he does pick Solanke, I think it'll be on merit. And I think, he deserves to be in there. The final thing I would just add is that if you look at the availability of squad places, unfortunately for Solanke, there's also an Ollie Watkins there,
that's right,
who's done even better for a better team in bigger volume.
That's right.
And he's going to go ahead of him. Yeah. And as we said last week, actually, there's plenty of forwards actually in England traditionally over the last 30 years who haven't got amazing amounts of caps because there's just been other players that are better.
Yeah. I think you've summed that up very, very well. Just to echo that, I think your first point about Toney being the most similar to Kane is Toney's biggest selling point for him going into this squad, and Ollie Watkins should be there on merit. So normally Southgate has traditionally taken two out-and-out strikers with, say, a Rashford who could pop in there if needs be. If Jared Bowen goes in the team, he could do that role. But again, like, you wouldn't want to ideally see that because your main man's going to stay fit, and then you've got your backup. So I think maybe he might take 3 forwards with the extended squad, despite what we said about the defenders in the first half. And I think that is Toney and Watkins, and I think Solanke. It's unlucky because it's a great season, but I think that's it.
Yeah, that's how it goes. Yeah. Hope that answers your question. Next up is Andy. Andy says, which England player got too many caps? Now, last week we talked about players didn't get enough caps, so it makes sense that we did a mirror image of it, and it's a chance for us to slag some people off as well, which is always taken.
Yes.
Certainly by me. So, Marcus, I'll come to you first. Which England player got too many caps?
Joey Barton.
He got one, didn't he?
Yep.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't want him representing England on any level. Obviously, he wouldn't now.
I don't think he will. No.
But he only represents himself.
Well, possibly some kind of obscure part of the European Parliament if we get back into the European Union.
Oh, God,
could happen.
Yeah, so Barton.
Joey Barton's a great answer.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair to Joey, there's no reason to be fair to him because the man is an idiot.
Yeah.
But at the time, there was a clamour for him to be recognised.
Yeah.
And he was playing well, and he was a good midfielder at that point.
People might say, yeah, but you're saying it with hindsight. Yes, I am.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with your sentiment, and I think it's a good answer. Have you got any more?
I do, and this might be a bit harsh because he was a great goalkeeper for England and a great goalkeeper.
Peter Shilton?
No, I was going to say David Seaman.
Okay. For what reason?
Only because he probably would have retired after the 2002 World Cup. I'm speculating on that, and of course the way it ended with that Ronaldinho goal and it going over his head. I think maybe he thought, oh no, I've got to stick around and play a bit more. And then I just remember a game at Southampton's ground, actually, St Mary's, where England played Macedonia, as they were called then. I'm pretty sure it was Macedonia. I think the game ended 2-2, and Seaman let one in.
It was Macedonia, from a corner.
From a corner.
Yeah.
And I remember, again, it was very similar to that Ronaldinho goal in that the ball just kind of loops over his head and he stranded, and he just looked old. And I remember the crowd, and this is... it's piss poor from the crowd, I think, but and later in the game, a cross comes in and Seaman claims it, and they all sarcastically go, hey, like that.
Sad.
And that was just a bit sad. And so I think just because of that, Seaman, who was such a brilliant goalkeeper, as I say, for England as well, just maybe he just went on that a little bit too long. But I understand it because of the way it ended. You can't have that be your last moment in an England shirt. No.
I think it's a good answer. I think there's an element of this where... when you're the England manager and you select the team, you get so little time with the players. There's a temptation just go, do you know what? I know what I'm going to get with him.
Yeah.
And maybe he's a declining force and he's not quite what he was, but he's still good enough. And there's no other variables to bed in or worry about the dynamic and all the rest of it. So I do understand the temptation.
And he retired from international football not that long after that. Of course, like Euro 2004.
What do they say? You should leave football before football leaves you.
Yeah.
Right? You should retire when people say why rather than why not.
Yes, exactly.
I would, perhaps even more controversially, as is my brand, I guess.
Oh, yes.
I would potentially say David Beckham.
That's because there were a lot of little cameos.
I think it became far too much of an England farewell tour because of what he represented. Mm-hmm. And he got 115 caps for England in the end and was a remarkable player, a remarkable character. I've got a lot of affection and time for him. I think he's a great ambassador for the sport generally. I don't really go too much into all this private life and that kind of stuff because I don't think that's that particularly relevant. But you have to look at, I think it's 20 odd of his caps. I might have this wrong. I might not have the exact detail, but around 20 of his caps came when he was an LA Galaxy player.
Yeah.
And then I know he spent some time on loan. I think a few of them maybe might have been when he was on loan at Milan the first time. Mm-hmm. But really, England did a pretty bad job of moving him along. Mm-hmm. He was famously, personally desperate to break a record to get more caps than Bobby Moore to try and get that Peter Shilton level and all the rest of it. Mm-hmm. From memory, he had quite a bad Achilles injury, which ended his career, didn't he?
Yeah, ahead of South Africa in 2010.
Yeah, so...
and that was it, really.
That was that. But I do think England doesn't do I don't think England does a very good job of kind of being the kind of, taking the tough decision. Mm-hmm. So it's a good question by Andy because it makes us sound like we're slagging off great players for England. David Seaman was a fantastic goalkeeper for England. Yeah. David Beckham was a great player and a great captain for England.
Joey Barton's a great bloke.
But it went too far. Well, the reason I said Shilton when you mentioned the goalkeeper is because I feel like in World Cup 90, Shilton was 40 and I felt like he was creaking big time.
Yeah.
He gave away a penalty stupidly in the third place playoff. Okay, fine, that's a third place playoff. He got nowhere near any of the penalties in the semi-final against West Germany. And I felt like that was one tournament too many for him, probably.
Maybe.
But anyway, look, and Peter Shilton's also an awful bloke. So that might be colouring my opinion somewhat. He's not as bad as Barton.
Yeah.
So, but he's certainly in the same ballpark.
You'd have had Chris Woods in goal at 19.
Chris Woods was in the squad. Seaman himself was in the squad.
Yeah,
He's the third choice goalkeeper, wasn't he?
Not Dave Besant.
Yes, you're right. It was Dave Besant because Seaman was originally picked as the third choice keeper, up and coming young keeper.
Yeah.
Got an injury and then Besant came and replaced him.
Getting Besant in there.
And there was all sorts of rumours about bringing Besant on for the penalties.
Yeah.
But probably didn't do it.
I don't think that was true.
Anyway, final one.
Yes, final one from Joe. To help England's chance at the Euros, which psychic medium would you like to see on the plane? Would you bring Eileen Drury back into the fold? Personally, I think Uri Geller is a spent force.
Yeah. I mean, one would have to be...
What is Geller?
One would have to be a force to be a spent force.
True.
What is Geller? Well, I'll tell you what, he's a charlatan and a madman. And
illusionist and magician, it says. A quick search.
Claims to be able to do things that he can't do.
But don't we all do that?
Yeah, yeah, that's a bit rich coming from me. Well, you should see my job interviews over the years. Jesus, Photoshop, no problem. I'm not sure if Eileen Drury's still alive. Is she?
Oh,
I think I tried to Google it, but I couldn't find any particular information about that.
Yeah.
Mystic Meg's also dead.
Yeah, that is a shame.
She passed on, yeah. Brian Conley's Septic Peg would be my answer.
Lovely.
Do you remember?
Yes, just about.
Yeah.
What about Derren Brown? Is he into that kind of stuff? Or is he debunking that kind of thing?
Yeah, he kind of debunks it, but he also uses like genuine real world techniques to make it look like he's an illusionist when he isn't.
Yeah. So get him on the plane.
Don't
debunk him, bunk him. For the England players.
Rebunk them.
Yeah, fine.
Unbunk the debunk and then rebunk. I don't think Derren Brown can harm our chances.
Slam dunk the rebunk is what I'm saying.
Big time.
And
as Fijan Duncan said.
What we need is a good rebunking.
But I'll tell you what, when the tension's getting a bit kind of much, half time during a big knockout game.
Get Lewis Bunk on it.
Bring back the great Bunkin Edwards. But you could get Derren Brown to come on and do a little bit of trickery to relax people.
Yeah, I think so.
The problem would be that I think the players, some of whom aren't very clever, would get very frightened.
Grealish would love it.
Grealish can't deal with Brown.
No, but he would be. I'd be a bit. Yeah, well, he couldn't deal with a map of England not that long ago. Let alone. Yeah, I think there's a price for old Derren.
I think probably Derren Brown or Brian Conley as Septic Peg for those of you who are a bit older.
Get them both in there.
That's probably a hugely problematic character now. I haven't checked, but might be really offensive.
Let's end the podcast quickly then.
Before we offend anyone else.
Thank you for watching a clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an upload. A single upload. Don't miss out on the uploads. The uploads are important.